What is up, guys? I'm kneeshuuh and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a palette comparison between the Colourpop Whatever palette and the Natasha Denona Sunset palette and talking way too much. So if that's something that you're interested in, keep on watching. All right, I did the swatches like just now, so let me go through what I see and then I'll have my little graphic. Let me pivot, have my little graphic. I do not like that Natasha Denona doesn't have the names underneath the shadows. There might have been a little plasticky insert, but it's gone now, so I had to look up everything online, so inconvenient at best. For those of you who don't know, I did not buy this for the $129. I bought this, the Lila palette, and the Gold palette, all secondhand from a former working makeup artist for $40 in total. So I got like $380 worth of eyeshadow for $40. So if there was the little plasticky bit, she is gone, but not that I matter, but yeah. Let's get into these shades. So first up, on the Natasha Denona side, I did Ice Cold, and on the Colourpop side, I did Tarte. So Ice Cold is more stark and white, while Tarte is kind of like a, I don't know, it's kind of like a champagne, but it's a super shock shadow, so it catches the light really nice. I have that in my inner corner. I have both in my inner corner. Can't really see a difference. It's the Ice Cold is stark, but it does have like a little bit of like a gold or nude shimmer. It's just not quite as bright or as dark as Tarte. Next, I compared Panjin on the Natasha Denona side to Maybe Later on the Colourpop side. Maybe Later is more orange, like an orange toned red. They're pretty much the same red. It's just that they're both the same, like even tone of red. It's just that Panjin is more of like a neutral red, where Tarte is more of like an orange toned red. Next, I did Sinai on the Natasha Denona side and Copycat on the Colourpop side. They're both like a basic nude shadow, but Sinai is definitely a darker nude tone, but the next two shades are essentially the same shade, and this was the next lightest nude without being like the super pink toned nude in the palette. So I just wanted to compare, but yeah, they're both the same, kind of just like warm brown. It's just one is a little bit more light than the other. Next is Terra and Pass It On. These are essentially the same shade. I would say that Terra might be like a little darker, but that's if I'm like really looking and really splitting hairs. But whenever I was going over the palettes initially and just like finger swatching just to see what would be the best comparison before I went in and primed everything, I honestly couldn't tell a difference. I only think that it's a little bit darker now because I'm looking for that difference. Next, I did Panjin and Bad Guy. Bad Guy is the other red in the Whatever palette, and Panjin is that same red as earlier. Bad Guy is a little bit more maroon, so you see that, you see that the Colourpop palette has a very like warm toned red and a very cool toned red, and the Natasha Denona palette just has the neutral red, but they're all kind of like the same tone. I guess since Bad Guy is cool toned, it looks a little darker, but I mean, it's just tones at this point, you know? Next, I did Mandarin from the Natasha Denona side and Not Okay from the Colourpop side. Not Okay is a little bit more darker and kind of like a true copper, where Mandarin is kind of like a gold with a little bit of like an orange flip. Yeah, and because it's gold with like a little bit of orange, it looks a little bit lighter. I have Mandarin more on the middle of the lid and Not Okay more on the middle of the lid over here. You can't really tell a difference on the eye, because I think that the orange in Mandarin becomes more apparent once it's actually applied versus swatched. So that's something interesting, but yeah, they pretty much look the same upon application, but on swatches, Not Okay is definitely darker and more copper. Next, I did Morgana from Natasha Denona and Ditchin' You from Colourpop. So Morgana, these are kind of like the same shade, but because they're both kind of like an orange-ish red. Ditchin' You is a little bit darker, like more red, but it has like a slight gold shift, where Morgana would be like a light with a slight dark shift. It's very interesting. Yeah, they're just kind of lighter and darker versions of the same kind of orange, kind of red shade. Next, I did Volcano and In Bold. These are pretty much the same color. I would say that Volcano is a little bit more pigmented upon application, but they both pretty much had the same amount of fallout. They both had the same effect. That's what I have on both outer corners. And whenever I look straight ahead, you wouldn't be able to tell. So, I mean, same shade. Next, I did Atmosphere versus Talk to You Never. Talk to You Never is kind of like a true red to orange duochrome, whereas Atmosphere is kind of just like another red with like a slight orange shift. What I would say in like the difference between like the duochrome is, depending on the light, it looks either red or orange. But that's just the swatch. Whenever I was actually applying it to the eye, like I laid it down and you could not tell a difference between the orange that was more towards the middle of my eye and what I was putting down. But whenever I turned my head, you could see the red. And it was pretty tripping me up, and I eventually just went in with the red matte and just stamped it on my eye. Upon application, the Natasha Denona shift is much stronger, but whenever I look at it on my arm, now that I have it like swatched out, I can like move my arm and the Colourpop side shifts more. So I don't know what's up with Natasha Denona and like the application versus the swatch being kind of like different. It must just be because like my arm is kind of like a broad flat surface, where my eye, you know, I have creases, I have a fold, you know, I have an eyelid. I guess it has to do with like that. Ooh, I'm starting to like get like a burp. Look into my eyes and tell me you see a difference. Do you see a difference? I don't see a difference, but I'm also not wearing my glasses, and things look different on my computer than they do my camera, so it could be like just having a whole lot of egg on my face right now. We will see in post. Last but certainly not least, I took Tarte and Sundazed. So Tarte was the first Colourpop shade that I swatched with Ice Cold, and it's what I ended up putting on the inner corners together. I wanted to do Tarte and Sundazed because, or excuse me, I wanted to do Tarte and Ice Cold because they both were the lightest, somewhat shimmer shades in the palette, but I do feel that Tarte and Sundazed are much more comparable swatch comparisons, where Tarte would be more champagne. Sundazed is definitely like more gold, but they're essentially like the same shade. They're the same color, just one is more gold and one is more like the pinky neutral champagne. Again, yeah, I just wanted to swatch the lightest shades and the darkest shade in the palette just to see how both kind of measured up, because since there was a slight gold shift to Ice Cold that I could see in the palette, I just wanted to see if my eyes were deceiving me, and they weren't. Ice Cold is definitely lighter, but I would say that but I would say that Tarte versus Sundazed is definitely like a much more comparable comparison. Comparable? I can English. It's a much better comparison. So those are the swatches, those are the shades. Now I'm going to be getting into the look comparison, so stick around if you want to see that, if you want to see how they perform on my eyes. I did have to finagle a little bit to get these to look like exactly the same. So if you want to see like specifics, keep watching, but all in all, I would say that these are pretty much the same palette. So I would say that Natasha Denona, your claim as the queen of the fall palette, you know, the sunset palette that overtook YouTube in 2017, has been rightfully dethroned by the whatever palette. Remember when Colourpop came out with the Yes Please palette as their answer to this palette? People either loved or hated that. I was interested, but not interested enough to try. But I did like this because it has a lot more red. Thank you everybody so much for watching. If you want to see the look portion, continue on. But if this is where we leave, bye. Hi, I don't know how much of this you're going to see because I'm going to be trying to doing something like a la Teresa is Dead, where I kind of talk about it after I do the makeup, but like show in the corner. I'll talk a little bit if I can't get that right, and then you'll see this, and so you'll know that I'm a complete editing failure. But hi, I hate that Natasha Denona doesn't have like the names underneath this. I think there used to be a little plasticky insert for this, but I don't have it. So I've written down everything, and I'm gonna pray that I get everything right. So my Colourpop side, I'm going in with pass it on. Just stamping it, not really blending anything right now. And for that, I'm going in with Terra. I don't know if you can tell a difference, but this side looks a little bit more like orange and warm, where here it's a little bit more neutral, but they are very, very similar. On the Colourpop side, I'm gonna be blending this out with Maybe Later. And on the Natasha Denona side, I'm going in with Panjin. This is a lot more vibrant of a red, but when blended out with the crease shades, I don't know if you can tell a difference. This looks a little bit more red in the camera, so I'm gonna go in with a little bit more of Maybe Later. These look fairly even. Next, I'm going to be deepening the outer corners with In Bold and Volcano. In Bold is not that pigmented right off the bat. There is some fallout right there. Does my highlight look like too much? I'm trying the new Give Me Glow. I got my Give Me Glow in order yesterday. And I got their new highlighter in Glitzen. Stunning. Then on the Natasha Denona side, here is Volcano or Volcano. Volcano is definitely like a little bit more pigmented. To blend these together, I'm gonna take some of Copycat on the Colourpop side. And that is a match for Sinai on the Natasha Denona side. So I have an idea of the shimmers that I'm gonna do, but I feel like these looks will really differentiate in the shimmers. Oh, there's some fallout right here. I can see like the darkness. So here's a close-up of the matte so far. I know I do my eyeshadow very, very sloppy, but it all comes together in the end. I'm back, my crease is cut, and I'm gonna go in with my inner corner shade now. Okay, so I'm gonna do kind of like an inner corner, mid, and then like outer corner-ish situation, so bear with me. But on the Colourpop side, I'm gonna go in with Tarte. So here is Tarte. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. And then on Natasha Denona, I'm going in with Ice Cold. That is a much more like stark white. When compared, it has a slight gold shift, but not nearly as much as like a shimmer as Tarte. On my Colourpop side, I'm going in with Not Okay. On Natasha Denona, I'm gonna be going in with Mandarin. And on the Colourpop side, I'm going in with Talk to You Never. And on the Natasha Denona side, I'm going in with Atmosphere. So both are red with like a slight orange shift, but this shift between red and orange is far more apparent than this one. Like this is almost a duochrome. Okay, so I've kind of cleaned up both sides, like brought the inner corner, like blended that in a little bit on both sides. That way there isn't as harsh of a line. There still is kind of a harsh line here, but I'll fix that in just a bit. But here are both sides before mascara and all that good stuff. I will say there doesn't seem to be like as much of like a shimmer on this inner corner, but I'm gonna go in with highlight anyway, so I don't think that that matters too much. I don't see too stark of a difference. This side might look a bit more saturated, but I don't know if it's because of like the duochrome over here that you just don't see the red as much. Okay, so I ended up going in with a little bit more of either side's like red shade, so Maybe Later over here, Panjin over here. I think it helps bring some red back. It makes these looks a lot more even. I will say this side, the Colourpop side, looks more sparkly and reflective. But again, I feel like the inner corner, I went Midwestern for a word. Anyway, I feel like the Super Shock shadow that Tarte is kind of adds to that, where this is more of like ice, what was it, Ice Cold? Ice Cold is kind of like a white with a little bit of a gold shift to it. But other than that, I think these are very comparable from what I can see in the camera. So I'm gonna finish up both sides and then I will be right back. Have you been there the whole time? Look at the baby. I'm back, and here is the final look. I have some red underneath my eyes. Very descriptive. I have Panjin and Maybe Later underneath my eyes, and then I also use the Colourpop Joyride Creme Gel Liner to keep it red. But yeah, here is everything all blended out, all smoothed out. I still feel like the Colourpop side has a little bit more kick in the shimmers. But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys see that I don't see? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!